Hello everyone, welcome back to another vlog. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Welcome to a very chatty vlog. I just feel like I have to give a fair warning. This one is going to be a little bit lengthy. Literally had to take a deep breath like right before I hit record because I already know that I'm going to be really chatty. But we are doing another reading wrap up. This is the second one that I've done so far, and I really just want to like continue that at the end or like the beginning of a new month. So we're doing a little June reading wrap up. So the month of June was honestly such a busy reading month. So I felt like the month prior in May, I think I only got through like 7 books, but then June rolled around and next thing you know, I had gone through 19 books last month, which I'm super excited about because I ended up getting through some books I had been wanting to read for quite some time. But yes, no coffee for me today because I honestly already had a cappuccino earlier and I had a matcha and I'm kind of wired right now. But that's probably a good thing because I need that caffeine to be able to talk as much as I'm about to. I also recently made myself like a little template, nothing crazy, but I kind of want to continue to do that throughout every month and just kind of like list all the books and the ratings that I gave them. But this is the cutie little template that I made. I just added all the books on here and just did like a little rating situation on all of them. But in case I'm looking at my phone, I'm looking at the little wrap up template that I made. So I'm going to be referencing back to this as I'm going. But I guess we'll kind of just like go down the line. I'm literally, as I'm talking, I'm literally trying to figure out like the best way to go about this because there's just way too many. I feel like I just want to go like in order through all the books. I will attach like the photo of the books somewhere on the screen, probably in this area here, just because out of every book on this list, I only have 2 of them in my personal collection. June was honestly such a heavy Kindle month. It's the most I've ever picked up my Kindle, to be honest. But anyways, first one on the list is Mile High by Liz Tomford. I really like this book a lot. I gave it a 4-star rating. I had been wanting to pick up this book for quite some time. It was on my TBR list for a while, and I think there was a certain time in June where I just kept seeing everybody read this book, or at least this whole series, and I'm just like, okay, I kind of like just need to dive right into it. And we honestly started off the month of June on a pretty strong note because I ended up loving it so much. So basically the main male character is a part of the NHL. He's like this big time like sports guy. Him and his whole team have like a private plane that they go on and travel from like game to game, and there's this flight attendant on there that he meets and he ends up just like having a thing for her. It is an enemies to lovers type of book, which I am all here for, to be honest. Also lately I've really been enjoying books that have like sports in them, especially like hockey. I've really been into books like that lately. I'm just finding so much joy in reading those types of stories. But one thing that really stood out to me about this book in particular was just a sense of like inclusivity. They make a lot of conversation in the book about the main female character being like a plus size woman, and I honestly love that so much. I'm not sure if all of the books in this series are like this one was, and I'm seeing here on the review that I gave a 4.5. I think I wasn't able to make like half-star ratings like when I did my template, so I just kind of like rounded up or rounded down, I don't know. But I gave it a 4.5. But yes, I just really enjoyed it so much. I haven't jumped into any of the other books in this series so far, but if they're anything like this one was, which I've heard a lot of great things about all the books, but I am honestly just so excited to continue to read on. I don't know if I'll get to any in the month of July, but for sure in August I want to maybe dive into the second one. But yeah, that was a really good read. I'm really happy that we crossed that one off our list. So the next one on the list is called The Tenant by Freida McFadden. I gave this book a 3.75. This book was actually a part of my friend's book club. In a recent vlog, I did show a few clips from that book club, but this was a selection that we had for the month of June in that book club. The main character, Blake, is basically somebody who just got fired from his job. He's married to somebody, and they both end up wanting to get like a tenant to move in, just kind of help financially. But all these things start happening once like the new tenant moves in, like all this weird stuff. So yeah, honestly, I'm gonna say right off the bat, the main male character, Blake, I think if Blake wasn't a part of this story and he wasn't who he was, I would have probably enjoyed this book a lot more than I did. We do not like Blake in this story, and I heard somebody say at the book club that it might not have been like her best book because this book in particular was written from a male perspective. He was just not a vibe. As usual though, 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒃 always delivers. Sometimes unexpected plot twists. The entire time I'm reading a 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒃 book, I try so desperately to try and figure out what is happening before I get to the end, and I'm almost never right, to be honest. But I will say, as low as a rating as this one got, I still very much eat 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒃 books up. Nothing is going to stop me from diving into one of her stories. I just think that although they can be a little predictable and cliche at times, I love them. What can I say? But yeah, I'm really happy that I read it anyway. I had been wanting to read it, but it was a really good time. Honestly, we were all there for the vibe. I feel like we collectively felt the same way about this book, but at the same time, like, we were all just having a good time. We had like a cookie swap and everything. So yeah, I had a lot of fun regardless. And like I said, I will always eat up a 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒃 book at any point in time. But yeah, it was an okay read. So the next book on the list that I read was another 𒕕�𝒏𝒂𝒃 book. So because I had like the thoughts about the tenant, I was kind of just like unhappy with how I felt after reading that book. So I immediately jumped into another 𒕕�𝒏𝒂𝒃 book that I had been wanting to read for a little while. And thank gosh, I enjoyed this one a lot more, which just kind of like redeemed it. So yeah, this one was called The Crash by 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒃. This book was really good in my opinion. I've heard people say that they didn't like it, but for me, honestly, I really enjoyed the story. So the main female character, I believe she's like 7-8 months pregnant. She's honestly just like on her own. So in the beginning of the story, she's basically just heading over to go visit her brother, and there is a blizzard storm that is coming pretty soon, so she's trying to get on the road and kind of beat it. But unfortunately, she ends up getting into a car accident. In the middle of where she crashed, this couple ends up kind of like taking her in and giving her like a spare room to stay in, and like really suspicious things like start happening like with this couple. Something about the story just like, I really liked it a lot. I gave it a 4-star. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but I gave it a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. It was really entertaining for me. I feel like 𒕕�𝒏𝒂𝒃 books are also so great in the sense that they're easy reads. I feel like for me personally, like I get through them pretty quickly, but I'm just so entertained like the entire time. Even if they don't get like a really high rating, I'm still enjoying it pretty well. But yeah, this one was pretty enjoyable. The next book on the list that I read was one called The Most by Jessica Anthony. I don't have a lot of thoughts, to be honest, surrounding this book. It was a very, very quick read, and it didn't have the greatest ratings, but I just kind of wanted to like dive into it anyway. I also just wanted to have like a very chill and quick read in that moment. So I picked this one up after seeing it float around on my Goodreads for a little while, and I don't know. I wanted to get into it way more than I did. I think I gave it a 2-star rating, and honestly, I'd probably give it a 1 if I really had to like go back and think about it. I felt like at the end of this book, it just felt very pointless to me. The main female character is basically just like going through something. She's having like a really hard time like in her marriage. I feel like it's one of those marriages that's kind of like fizzling out, and I think they have like 2 or 3 children together. So one day she basically ends up getting into like the swimming pool, and the entire book basically takes place with her just like not wanting to get out of that pool. Like she's contemplating so many things, there's so many thoughts running through her head. It just felt very scattered to me, but at the same time, like it weirdly gave me like anxiety reading it, and I don't know, it was kind of like a frustrating read for me, and I don't have a lot of thoughts surrounding it. I didn't enjoy this book at all. Yeah, on to the next. So the next book on the list is one that I really, really enjoyed. This one is called One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I want to say that that's how you say their name. So with this book, I gave it a 4-star rating. I really enjoyed this one so much. I actually went into this book completely blind. I did not read the synopsis. I had no idea what it entailed. The thing too that I really loved about this book was the fact that it was a queer read, and I didn't know that going into the book. Like I honestly didn't even look at the book cover that much. It was one of those books I just kind of like floated around, and I added it very quickly to my TBR list. But yeah, going into the book, it's pretty much just put out there at the very beginning that it is a queer read, and I honestly love that, especially in the month of June. I'm also realizing that in this list, I ended up reading a couple of queer reads. Love that. The main female character meets somebody that's on the subway, and she ends up finding out that this person that's always on the subway can't leave. She's like stuck in another year, like way before the main character's time. And she's just kind of like trying to figure out little by little through the entire book and kind of helping the person on the train like figure out why they can't leave and why they're stuck in this certain time. It's just a really interesting book, to be honest. Like, I did not expect to read that type of story and for it to be queer of all things too. So I don't know, it was a really, really nice book to start and to kind of get through. I really enjoyed it so much. But yeah, I definitely recommend this book. I don't want to give away too much when I'm talking about each of these books. Mostly want to share my thoughts. But yeah, this one was honestly so cute. I love the story so much. I love the tension that was built between the two main characters. I also really, really love whenever there's just like a very like funny like friend group in the books. I feel like that makes it so much more enjoyable for me. I love that kind of setting, like in a story where like you meet the main character, but you also meet like their friends, and they end up just being like really funny and sassy at times. And I am honestly here for that in any book. I just feel like it also helps you like dive in a more personal way into the main character's life. I just love having that kind of energy in a story. But yes, I really enjoyed the story and you should definitely read it. Okay, you guys, we've gotten through 5. I'm like, we're not even halfway done yet. I'm trying to power through these. Okay, so the next one on the list, you guys, I feel like some of you are gonna come for me, but I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, I might have, but I am not a very big Ali Hazelwood fan. I think this story was probably the second one that I've read from her, and they both honestly have the same rating for me. There's something about her books, I don't even know what it is exactly, that I just cannot get into. Like, I feel so lost in the middle of it. I feel like she's so loved by everyone, and I don't know. Let me know if you're somebody like me that is like in the minority, it seems at this point, of like people that don't like her. I just can't get into her writing for the life of me. I end up being like less than halfway through and I'm already just so bored. And I just feel like I keep having that same reaction to the stories that I've read from her. Again, I've only read 2, but at the same time, I can't stop adding her stories to my TBR list. I feel like at this point, like I'm on a mission to find like the one Ali Hazelwood story that kind of just reels me in and changes my mind. If you're an Ali Hazelwood fan, please let me know below what story you really love from her. I would love to add it to my list because I don't know why. I want to find one that I just kind of like vibe with, and I just haven't so far. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Deep End. I gave it a 2-star rating. I'm not even sure if I liked it that much, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. We haven't found an Ali Hazelwood story that we love just yet, but I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. On to the next one on the list, and that is The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. You guys, I really love this series so far. There's another one from the same series that I read the month of June, but we're talking about this first one so far. It reeled me in so quick. I really love the characters. It's a part of the Campus Diaries series. I feel like this is one of those series that I honestly don't see on like my Goodreads and stuff. Like I don't see it floating around that much. I don't even know how I came to find out about this series, but it must have been just somebody that I follow kind of added it to theirs and it seemed interesting. I decided to start this story pretty soon after adding it to my TBR list. I'm so happy that I did. Again, it's a sports romance. As I said in the beginning of this vlog, I'm really enjoying like sports romance lately. I also love that in this story, it's a female that we focus on trying to get into the women's hockey team. I love that. I love that that's the focus like in this story. It's also another enemies to lovers type of story. She wants to practice her skills so that she can get into this women's team. So she asked for the help from this guy who's also a hockey player on his team to kind of like help her train and just kind of get better at her game. He's also like a very like grumpy, like opinionated kind of like rude guy. But yeah, there's a lot of banter between them, which I love, and we all know that we love the tension in those stories. I gave it a 4.5. I really enjoyed this one so much. So the next one on the list is the first 5-star read in this pile. This one was actually part 2 of a series that I had started, but it's Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. You guys, I love this book so much. It was one of those books that I was just like rushing home every day from like having to work and do things like that because I really wanted to get home and just read this book. I absolutely adored the 2 characters, both of them. I felt so giddy throughout the entire book. Like I caught myself like blushing at like things that were happening like between them and stuff, and I just loved everything about this book. I felt so close to the characters. I love the story. It was just super enjoyable. This was part of the When in Rome series. So When in Rome was the first one, and this was the second one in that series, which I also loved When in Rome. I think I gave that like a 4-star rating last year, but Practice Makes Perfect was just the most wholesome read. I loved everything about this story. I loved the background to it. I love the characters. I also just love the chemistry that they had with one another. I think that was just something that I found so cute, and I just really loved it so much. But the main female character is basically trying to get out there and date. She's not really good at like the whole flirting thing. If you've read the first one, it deals with like a singer. I want to say she's like a pop star. Basically in this story, the main male character is that pop star girl's bodyguard. So it's just basically his story and the main female character. So basically like he ends up helping her just kind of practice on how to date. And yeah, it just goes from there, and it's just the cutest story. I really love it so much. I love stories like this too that take place in like a small town. I love a small town romance. Next on the list is one that I've actually had on my TBR for probably a couple years, to be honest, and it was another very short read, but I actually ended up enjoying it way more than I thought. It had like a weird concept to it, but it's called Animal Farm by George Orwell. I want to say that's how you say his name. This book I gave a 4-star. I feel like thinking about it, the whole concept is weird, and it honestly made me feel like really creeped out in certain parts. And it's not like a creepy thriller or anything, but I think just like I think like the moral of the story and just the way that it was portrayed in his writing is something that I hadn't read before, but it was also just like surprisingly well done. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed like, having it in this sort of setting. I honestly don't even know how to explain this story, so I'm not even gonna try to. It's a very short read. You should definitely read it, and I would love to know what other people's thoughts are on this book. But I love little weird reads like this, and there was just something about this one that made me feel uncomfortable. But I also found that the writing was just like so easy to follow. It really like made you think about things in a certain way, and it was just very different. It was very different, but I really just love the moral of the story. I don't know, it was really enjoyable. It was very weird, and I kind of like that. You guys, we're halfway there. Powering through this. So the next book on the list that I read was Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I really love this book so much. I want to say that I gave it a 4.5 star rating. This book was so enjoyable for me, and it was also my very first Carly Fortune story that I had read, and it's also the first one that she had ever written. This book honestly just felt like such a warm hug. It felt like the most nostalgic, like heartwarming, wholesome story. I could literally talk about this book so much. This was another story where I just could not put it down. I just kept going through every page and just smiling the entire time that I was reading this. It's just one of those stories that kind of stuck with me. It also really reminded me a lot of The Summer I Turned Pretty, but like more for adults. And I feel like I've heard other people kind of like mention that in their reviews. It feels so personal too because of the main characters that kind of like grew up with each other since they were kids. I just love a good story like that, which is why I love The Summer I Turned Pretty so much. I just love stories like that. People having like such a close relationship and just going into adulthood, knowing each other. There is grief also in the story, as well as just like heartbreak. Like there are moments where I was just giddy and smiling from ear to ear, but there are other moments too where I just honestly like just felt gutted. I felt like very emotional reading this, like literally so many emotions on the spectrum. Like this book made me so happy when I finished it. I immediately added like every other book that she's done, which I think she's only done 4, but I added all of them. And yeah, we really love Carly Fortune over here, and I just feel like I don't hear anybody really talk bad about her stories ever, which it's totally understandable. I see why. But yes, this story was honestly so good. So the next book on the list is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was one of the most highly anticipated reads for me of this year. I still remember this book being announced and me just being so excited. I feel like I've talked about it in other vlogs quite a bit. Apart from Stephen King, Taylor Jenkins Reid has become another author that I just really love so much. I have never given any of her stories anything less than a 4-star rating, and this one being her newest one that she just released about a month ago, I gave it a 4-star rating. It is so good. It's also another one of the books that I read in the month of June that was a queer read, which I was not expecting for it to be a queer read at all. I also just really love that this isn't her first story that she's written where it deals with a queer person. I really love that she's added that in more than one of her stories. That was a nice surprise, to be honest. It was also just such an interesting approach from the stories that I'm used to reading from her. I already know that anytime I pick up a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, I know that I'm going to cry, I know that I'm going to feel so many emotions, and I know that I'm going to feel so good after I've read it. I feel like she breaks your heart in such a beautiful way, if that makes sense, and it's just her style of writing. I feel like she is just magic on paper, and I could just honestly sit here and praise her forever. But yeah, an interesting approach. It dealt with like female astronauts and space. Like as soon as I read that in the synopsis, I'm like, I am in. So it deals with like NASA and just centered around like space and things of that sort, which I really love. I think that was such an interesting approach. By the end of the story, I was in tears. I was a puddle of tears. It was honestly just so good. And I haven't heard anybody say anything bad either about this story, which I can't imagine somebody having anything negative to say about it. It's just written so beautifully well. But yeah, very well done. The next book on the list is part 3 in the When in Rome series. So I just finished talking about Practice Makes Perfect, which was the second one in the When in Rome series, but I ended up reading also Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. I gave this book a 4-star rating. I also really love this one as well. I feel like all of the books so far in this series have been so enjoyable, and I know that her 4th one is coming out, I want to say in January, so I'm super excited to have a POV from the last sibling of the group. Every character has just been so likable in my opinion throughout the whole series, and in this 3rd one I definitely didn't like it as much as Practice Makes Perfect, but it was still very high like on the rating scale. I think the thing that makes this such a perfect series for me is just how likable the characters are, and also just like that wholesome feeling of having it take place like in a small town. I just really love that so much. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. You guys, we are almost at the end. But the next one on the list is Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, I want to say. I'm just gonna say this book is for the freaky girls because she was a little bit crazy, to be honest, and I was actually talking to my friend who happened to be reading this book at the same time that I was, and I loved being able to talk with her about this book because I feel like unless somebody's reading it at the same time as you, they just wouldn't get it. And I don't think that this book is going to be necessarily for everyone. I think this is a very kinky read. It's definitely a lot, and for me, I really enjoyed this book, and I don't really know what that says about me. But I'm honestly, I'm open to anything. I love all kinds of stories, and just ones that kind of like keep me on my toes, ones that kind of keep me entertained. You guys, I love it. I love that. But yeah, this book was a little freaky, and honestly, I will be reading the next one in the series because me and my friend found out that it was part of a series, and we're just like, let's freaking go. Yeah, I'm really excited. I don't know. I don't have a lot of thoughts. Just proceed with caution. But if you're a fellow freaky gal like myself, I highly recommend. I gave this book a 4-star rating. She was a sexy little read. But yes, I really like this a lot. On to the next book on the list, but that is The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy. This is part 2 of the Campus Diaries series that I mentioned. The first one was The Gram Effect that I had just recently talked about. So this one's part 2 called The Dixon Rule. This story was also just as enjoyable as the first one. I think I gave them both a 4-star rating for good reason. I did not expect much from the series, to be honest, just because I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about it, but I've been really happy with both stories so far. I feel like although they have like the enemies to lovers kind of trope, I feel like these books both kind of deal with a little bit like heavier topics, especially the second one. There's some like physical abuse, but especially just the second one. There's not a lot of mention of it, but it deals with that. But I have really been enjoying the series a lot. I just feel like the stories have been very entertaining. I love the fact that it has to deal with sports. I love also just having a book that has a very like strong female character, and I feel like this series does a really good job at like having those types of women being like the main character in the books. The next one on the list is one that I don't really want to talk about too much because I still don't really know how I feel about it. I feel like it has a lot of praise, and then there's also like a lot of controversial like thoughts on it, but it's called Lolita. You guys, I'm a Mexican, so I don't even know if that's how her name is supposed to be said, but that's how I read it, Lolita. But I also don't know how to pronounce the author's name, Vladimir Nabokov. I think that's how you say it. It says here that I gave it a 3-star rating, but I don't know, it might be a 2 to be honest. Like, I honestly don't really know that I want to talk about this book. I feel like a lot of people are familiar with this book though, if you look it up. I would say, yeah, just go and look at the synopsis. I don't really want to talk about that topic per se in this video, but if you look up the synopsis, you'll kind of like see the gist of the story, and I just can't get on board with it. I feel like a lot of people kind of praise this story though because of, I guess, the writing or the intention behind like this type of story. I just couldn't really get into it, to be honest. It just wasn't the type of story that I wanted to be reading, and I feel like it just didn't do it for me. It just wasn't it for me. But on to the next. We are so close to being done, you guys, but the next one on the list is one that I have physically, and I've kind of talked about this series already. This is one of 3 of the books in this series that I finished in the month of June. I went a little bit crazy with this series, and I finished the first one, I loved it, and immediately started the next one, and the same thing happened with that book, and I started the 3rd one. And I feel like as I was reading it in my last vlog, like I talked a pretty good amount about these, so I don't want to get like right into it and like bore you guys with the same thoughts that I already initially had. But this one is called Flawless by Elsie Silver. Like I said, I've already kind of like talked about this series, but just to summarize what I've already said in other vlogs, this was the very first book that I've picked up and have read by Elsie Silver. This is part of the Chestnut Springs series, and as soon as I read this book, I was like, you're done. I was completely obsessed with it. I gave it a 4 or a 4.5 star rating. I really devoured this book. I mentioned how the day that I started this book, I finished it within a couple hours, and then that same day I started the second one in the series, which I'll go ahead and talk about as well, but that is Heartless, which is the second one in the Chestnut Springs series. I read the second one literally within a couple of hours as well. So between those like 48 hours, I read part 1 and 2. I don't know what got into me, but I could not put these books down. I'm telling you, I love them so much. You guys already know I love a cowboy/western romance. I mentioned in other vlogs how this summer has been like very heavily focused on like cowboy romance, but as well as like the Summer I Turned Pretty / like beachy vibes. I've just been really into those stories lately, and that's what I've been gravitating towards. But yes, this series in general is just a 10 out of 10. These books honestly just have made me feel so alive. I love the family dynamic. I love when books do that, take you through the POV and the life of every single person in their family group. And this is very much like that. It felt so much like the Rebel Blue Ranch series from Lila Sage. I ate all those books up too, to be honest, and this kind of just made me feel the same way that those books made me feel. Honestly, Elsie Silver has just had my complete attention, and I am currently reading part 4 in the Chestnut Springs series. Like, I feel like I didn't start this series that long ago, to be honest, but I went through part 1, part 2, and part 3, which is Powerless, which is also on this list. So to summarize, the first one got a 4-star rating, Flawless. The second one, called Heartless, got a 5-star rating. That was my favorite so far out of the entire series. I really loved it so much. And then Powerless was the 3rd one in this series, and I gave that one a 4-star as well. You guys, I love the characters so much. I just love the story, and honestly, the spice in these books, it's written so well. But yeah, big fan over here. I'm just completely consumed by these stories. But yeah, I don't want to like linger on too much about like talking about them, just because I feel like I've mentioned them quite a bit, like in little like shorts and like just little videos that I've put out. But yeah, I don't want to like bore you guys with that. But if you're also reading through these books right now, let me know your thoughts. I just really love all of these stories. And with that, we are at our last book on the list, which was also a very short story. You guys, my throat is dry. I completely forgot to like pour myself some water, so I'm like trying to power through this in case I'm starting to sound like a man. We did a lot of talking today. But the last book on my list, number 19, is Life Form by Jenny Slate. I read Little Weirds last year, which is, I want to say it's her first book. But if you're not familiar with Jenny Slate, she is, well, I know her to be an actress. I actually didn't know for the longest time that she was an author as well, but I know her from so many different movies. She has like an iconic voice that I could honestly recognize anywhere. But this book was basically a memoir of her life. I love the way that she writes. I gave this book a 3-star rating. I didn't like it as much as Little Weirds, but I still enjoyed this one. I think the thing I love most about Jenny Slate is just her style of writing. I think she's so goofy, but as I'm reading through her stories, I also just like get a sense of like anxiety because because like she'll be talking like a million miles per hour, and like she's talking about like so many like random things at once, and like at the same time like I also am just like, okay, relatable, because I just feel like that's how I am. I feel like there are moments where like you tell me one thing or you ask me one thing, I will literally do basically what I'm doing right now, is just like talking your ear off about like one single subject. And I'm just like so entranced by it. So like as I'm reading her stories, like I honestly feel like I'm living in my own brain, just like thinking about like so many things and just kind of like diving deep into them. And I just feel like she has a way of consuming you and like writing in such a way where you feel like you're truly tapped into the inner workings of her mind. I honestly just love that. But it was such an enjoyable read. I feel like they're weird reads, but I'm just like so entertained by her writing, to be honest. So my camera ended up dying on me at literally the most perfect time, because we are at the end of the vlog. But I feel like my camera was also like, girl, wrap it up. I desperately need some water because my throat feels so dry. I don't know why I didn't grab any before I started the video and just kind of placed it here so I can be taking sips, but here we are. But yes, if you made it this far into the video, honestly, thank you so much. That is so insane, to be honest, because I talk so much. So you are honestly my new best friend if you've made it this far, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really hope that you guys are enjoying this style of video. Like I mentioned, this is my second time doing one in this style. I feel like it's really nice to kind of like summarize everything that I've read the month prior. And I don't know, I just really enjoy making these types of videos, although I do get sick of hearing myself talk. I don't know, it's just enjoyable for me to be able to talk about some of the books that I enjoyed, and I just feel like I get excited like all over again. But yes, if you've made it this far into this video, thank you so much. I feel like we're best friends at this point. I'm honestly like this with my friends too though, and I constantly in my own head like, oh my gosh, I'm driving everybody sick, because that's how I feel. I'm just a chatty girl. But yes, I am so excited again to have you guys here. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and for supporting my channel and for supporting me. It means so much. I hope that you guys will consider subscribing. I try to post once a week, and I try really hard to stay consistent, but life gets in the way sometimes, and some days I just really need that time to just kind of like pour back into myself. But I am very excited to have you guys in this space, and I hope that you will consider sticking around. I'd love to have you here. But other than that, I feel like it is time to wrap it up officially. So yes, I am very scared to see how long this video is gonna end up being. But yes, I'm gonna go drink a very tall glass of water right now and probably not talk for the rest of the day. So yes, thank you guys so much for being here, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!